In 1974, Asantehene Apokawari II requested the repatriation of Ashanti gold.
We acknowledge the very painful history surrounding the acquisition of these objects, a history tainted by the scars of imperial conflict and colonialism. We also recognise the enduring cultural, historical and spiritual significance these artefacts hold for the Asante people.
His Royal Majesty Otumfo and Nanamo Memamo Asia. Eye me ani jisye meka enemy etumadi noho. Mene intia IV UNESCO Obremo.
Into a museum by my brother Tunfo Bokwari II, in memory of the adversities and sacrifices that Prempeh I endured.
Asanteman TV, yes, Somosompa.
For Tunfo Bokwari II. Virtually 29 years ago, we have gathered here again for another grand reopening of the Marshall Palace Museum to the public as part of activities marking the silver jubilee celebration of His Majesty the Tunfo II. Right, Reverend Oscar Christian Abara for the opening prayer.
We praise you, Lord, for the courage, wisdom, fortitude, and the visionary spirit you have endowed to fulfill our King. As we celebrate this occasion, to mark the homecoming of various treasured Asante Nigeria, which were taken by the British forces during the Anglo-Asante Wars in 1874. We invoke your presence to guide and guide us throughout the activities. We also pray that as we launch through books of management in Ghana and Africa, a history of Nigeria Palace Museum. We pray that you guide us in every aspect of it. Dear Lord, let the return of this regalia continue to deepen the bond of relationship between Asanteman and Ghana, and for that matter, and a Great Britain. May the painful past continue to build a future full of hope and glory. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
You can do it better. The Anglican Bishop of Kumasi, Right Reverend Oscar Christian Aboa. Well, thank you so much. Now, our distinguished chairman of this occasion has been the occupant of the silver stool of the Ashanti Kingdom for well over 28 years. He is an astute lawyer and the vice president of the Ashanti Regional House of Chiefs and the paramount chief of Asanteman traditional area. Help me welcome Sagrenti Osebonsu II, the chairman of this occasion. Now, before I invite our chairman to give us a remarks, the Ashanti Kingdom, well over the vice president of the Ashanti Regional House of Chiefs and the paramount chief of Asanteman, indeed the occupant of the silver stool. Another round of applause.
A very good morning. A very good morning to all our distinguished guests and visitors who have gathered here now. I'm waiting for your response. Especially the members of our diplomatic corps and our distinguished guests who have been able to fly and join us over here. All this signifies that the respect, the basic respect that the diplomatic mission, and through them, our former overlords, of course led by the British and some of the European representatives of great museums who are gathered and come over here. It shows the astute respect we are called our illustrious Majesty and King. To humbly accept your orders to play the role of chairman for today's esteemed function. My gracious Majesty, I humbly, dutifully accept to chair today's function. And it's not a small function, it is no mean function. It is because for over 200 years ago, our illustrious kingship as a royalty, the royalty regalia, I don't want to use the terminology, story, as a sign of respect of my dignitaries behind me over here, but rather 200 years ago, royalty regalia that got missing. My gracious Majesty, today is an auspicious day. So once again, I dutifully accept to serve as the chairman of this auspicious occasion. And fortunately for me, my astute son, whom we in Mambo, Butaso royalty, chair as Sir Ivo, my own departed brother, one of his sons. And I'm happy to note that Ivo has followed the footsteps of my brother, who is departed to join our ancestors. He has been able to put down some notes. I will give it as notes very well to guide me of what I should outline this very afternoon. Because I must confess, I hesitate to take the words out of the saying of our illustrious platoon force major summary that we all anticipate
at the end of the program. I really hesitate, so I restrict myself and follow the outline in memoir that my own astute and learned son has been able to put down for me. So once again, with the illustrious permission of My Majesty, I proceed, sir. Today is what is obviously one of the momentous memorials of Asante in the last 200 years. One of these will be why the reasons why we are with you this afternoon, Your Majesty. What you initiated, the negotiations in May 2023, which has taken less than a year to bear fruit. It had been tried several times before, in the last 50 years, but all to no avail. These objects of the Anglo-Asante Wars, particularly those of 1874, have finally come home. Talking about for some time now, but we are here also to witness the launch of two very important books by historians of two separate generations. Incidentally, Professor MacLeod, just now we were having some conversation, recollecting how the two of us, when you mandated me and sent me just 2 days notice, hey, Asanteman, here's the ticket, first class, board the plane, go over to Dallas, Texas, to represent me, to read my keynote address, because at that time Dallas Museum of Arts was organizing a program dubbed Dallas Exhibition, The Power of Gold, Asante Royal Regalia, from Ghana, organized by the Dallas Museum of Arts, in April 15th to August 12, 2018. And it was there that I met my proud professor. And I must confess, as soon as I detected that he literally, quote unquote, can be classified and called as one of the founding fathers of the great museum of Otumfuo. Behind us over here. Please, let's give him a hand. He is here today on the platform. And I'll take it from the agenda, but I'll leave it to our illustrious MC to highlight about it. He's going to talk to us. I saw him over there among the crowd, and instantaneously, I focused all my attention to him before I began reading your illustrious keynote address. And I was watching him as previously. And I see him blinking or doing it, then I know I was on the correct line or two. Both, I'm happy for us to renew our acquaintance. Homecoming is what it is. And a field cultural cooperation among people is what we have been talking about for some time now, our Otumfuo. But we are here also to witness the launch of two very important books by two historians of two generations. First Malcolm, I've already touched about him, and then of course my own son, an astute son, Ivo Ajumandia, whose father, a research fellow at the Institute of African Studies, Lagos, but now departed to their ancestors. That's his son. And he used to be my brother, royal brother from Botasi, blue blood. So I can boldly assert that Ivan, you are my son. The first book, Images of Ghana, by Professor Malcolm MacLeod, had come out of
a series of lectures he delivered at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, the last of which you Otumfuo chaired. I've already talked about him. He was one of the founding fathers of Montreal Palace Museum. I don't need to repeat the history, and then I work at Jumambia, who read the history of Montreal Palace Museum. Those at museology in Asante in the last 200 years. It's personal to me. I've already touched on that as the father of part of my royal blood. Don't need to elaborate. Whilst we will listen to what these two will tell us in their own words on behalf of Asantehene, I will want to again acknowledge the presence of partners and collaboration of this media event. To begin with, the British Museum, and particularly a member of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Chris Godson. May I please acknowledge you? Because I won't use the word by accident of history, but by colonialism is from our previous goodness of Gold Coast and Madagascar. Now he's here representing the great British Museum. Welcome. The director of the Victoria and Albert Museum, Dr. Christian Hunt. Foundation for Contemporary Art in Accra. Then British Airways and its head of sales and marketing for Southeast Africa and the Middle East. IAG Cargo, and then our home, the King Forces Foundation. Then, of course, my own brother, John Adokofo Foundation, former President's own foundation. Is our own son who is holding the fort of the dialogue. My illustrious brother, and then, of course, DG Books from Tema. And then, lastly but not the least, Fidelity Bank. Who will able to dispatch somebody Fidelity Bank. If not, Otumfuo Secretariat, please note it down and send them a reminder before we close the whole program. Up to June, they should dutifully send their representative to be here. Because Fidelity Bank, we have a lot of demands that is piled up. We want to approach and beseech them for them to help us, even adopt Otumfuo's vision. My gracious Majesty, I have dutifully declared today's meeting open. Thank you, sir.
And now a round of applause for our distinguished chairman of this great occasion, the Mayoni of Mampong traditional area. That's amazing. Thank you. Your Majesty, thank you. Your Majesty, Nana Chair, have a member of the Board of Trustees of the British Museum representing this huge cultural organization that has approved the 15 objects on exhibition today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's welcome Dr. Chris Godson. It's also heartwarming to have the director of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, Dr. Tristram Hunt, representing one of the world's leading museum of decorative arts. We thank you so much for being here with us. We have an 8-member team of British areas led by the head of sales, South Asia, Middle East and Africa, Mr. St0len Biga. The IAG Cargo, which serves as official logistic partner, has a team of 8 members led by the regional manager, Mr. Charles Ajay. Mr. Charles Ajay, we thank you. We appreciate your global services and your presence here. We are also grateful to Constantine Logistics in the UK and the West Wing Logistics in Accra. It's again with pride that we welcome the head of UNESCO in Ghana, Mr. Edmond Bukala, with his wife, Mrs. Bukala. We understand that this is the first time Mr. Bukala is visiting Kumasi since he assumed office. Mr. Bukala, stay a little longer. It must be also mentioned that this whole program is born in the spirit of collaboration between Anglo-Ghanaian Cultural Organization, and it is important to recognize the Foundation for Contemporary Arts in Accra, which collaborated with the curators at the National Palace Museum, the British Museum, led by Julie Hudson, and later joined by Angus Peterson of the Victoria and Albert Museum. We thank you so much for your support. It would be remiss on my part not to acknowledge the critical role played by the John A. Kufuor Foundation. Our distinguished chair mentioned that. But the two production advisors for Homecoming, Adversity and Collaboration, Mr. Ivor Ajmandia and Professor Malcolm McLeod, you do have our greatest gratitude. A big round of applause for these two individual personalities. We thank you so much for your support and for your ideas, your creativity, and particularly for today. In today's event, we have 2 very important books to be officially launched, and we'd like to appreciate the presence of the publishers of the Ghanaian edition, Mr. and Mrs. Fred Labi, also here with us. We thank you so much. Your Majesty, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Director General of NAMDO, Honorable Eric Nana Ajiman Prempe. And of course, your son, Professor Adem Mensah, the CEO of Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. And now welcome the member of the Board of Trustees of the British Museum, Dr. Chris Gosling, for a quick statement. Shall we put our hands together once again for Dr. Gosling?
Distinguished guests, Your Royal Majesty, please accept my congratulations on behalf of the British Museum on this auspicious occasion of your Silver Jubilee. Thank you for hosting me and my colleague Julie Hudson, and for welcoming us in such a friendly and open manner. It is my privilege to say a few words about the loan from the British Museum to the Homecoming exhibition, as well as to briefly speak about future partnerships and future collaborations. We were delighted to receive Your Royal Majesty at the British Museum last year, and I know my colleagues were very grateful for your visit. The relationship and connection between the Golden Stool of Ashanti and the British Museum is now over 200 years old. In 1817, the British diplomat Thomas Bowditch was similarly privileged to have been hosted here in Kumasi by the illustrious forebear of Your Royal Majesty, the Asantehene of Saifonsu, who gave generous gifts to the British Museum. All of us here know well that the history of our nations has also involved conflict, with the warfare between the British Empire and the Ashanti Kingdom, which started in 1873-4, a painful historical episode. In 1974, Asantehene II requested the repatriation of Ashanti gold from the British Museum. Malcolm MacLeod, then Keeper of Ethnography, came to Kumasi to explain that the provisions of the British Museum Act prevented the permanent removal of the objects from the collection. He stated that the British Museum wished to cooperate with the Golden Stool in exploring mutual areas for future research and scholarship, including a major exhibition on the Ashanti and developing a museum at the Mancha Palace with training for museum staff. The Palace Museum we see today is the tangible result of our joint initiatives. We have come a long way in 50 years. The 1981 Ashanti Kingdom of Gold exhibition at the British Museum enabled a diverse range of visitors to learn more about the history, arts and culture of the Ashanti Kingdom in London. It subsequently travelled to New York. Through a series of initiatives between 2006 and 2016, we also collaborated on knowledge exchange programmes and training through the British Museum's Africa programme, which helped support training for the Mancha Palace Museum staff and also provided opportunities for other Ghanaian colleagues. The new MOU provides the basis for enhanced cultural cooperation between the Mancha Palace Museum and the British Museum. This loan is its first tangible outcome. The loan from the Ashanti collections of the British Museum has been developed in close collaboration and dialogue with His Majesty, the staff and advisors of the museum, including the director of the Mancha Palace Museum, Iva Ajimandua, and technical advisor Malcolm MacLeod. The royal regalia is associated with ritual and ceremonial contexts within the Ashanti royal court and has been selected by the Mancha Palace. Most notable amongst these objects is the Rupaponsuo sword, traditionally used by Ashanti kings to swear their allegiance to the Golden Stool. Amongst the objects selected is also a small gold ornament in the form of a looped harp. This ornament was one of the cast gold objects presented in 1817 to the British diplomat Thomas Bowditch during his visit to Kumasi by the Asantehene Osibonsu. According to Bowditch, they were intended by the Asantehene as gifts to the British Museum and serve as means of representing the wealth of the Ashanti Kingdom in London. We're looking forward to learning more about these objects from colleagues and members of the public in Kumasi as we continue our collaboration. As a museum, we are committed to widening access to all our collections, whether this is through our work back in London, online to global audiences, or by sharing the collection as loans, such as this one, to create new opportunities for engagement and understanding.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gosling. We thank you for the remarkable statements. It's the moment to invite the director of the Victoria and Albert Museum,
that I stand before you on this momentous occasion to celebrate 25 years of your unparalleled and revered leadership.
Once looted by British forces in 1874, have rightfully found their way back to the Mansion Palace Museum through a collaborative effort between our institutions. The journey that has led to this moment has been one of dialogue and mutual respect. It is a decades-long journey, but Your Majesty's official visit to London in May last year, where we met together to discuss a landmark cultural exchange and partnership, and of pride. We acknowledge the very painful history surrounding the acquisition of these objects, a history tainted by the scars of imperial conflict and colonialism. We also recognise the enduring cultural, historical and spiritual significance these artefacts hold for the Asante people. It is a true honour and indeed a highlight of the V&A's history to be able to support this homecoming exhibition and to see the Asante crown regalia on display in their homeland. These treasures have borne witness to the triumphs and trials of a great kingdom, and their return to Kumasi is a testament to the power of cultural exchange and reconciliation. Through this partnership, we've embarked on a journey of knowledge exchange, skill sharing, and mutual understanding, recognising the invaluable contribution of the Asante people to the world's cultural heritage, as we shall hear from our colleague from UNESCO. The V&A remains dedicated, alongside the British Museum, to sharing its collections as widely as possible and embracing the opportunities for healing and reconciliation that such partnerships offer. Your Majesty, on this momentous occasion, we celebrate not only your remarkable reign, but also the resilience and achievements of the Asante people and the enduring power of cultural exchange. May this fabulous exhibition serve as a catalyst for further collaboration, mutual respect, and a deeper appreciation of the shared humanity and the culture of creative endeavour that binds us all. Thank you for inviting me here today, and once again, deepest and heartfelt congratulations on your Silver Jubilee, Your Gracious Majesty.
Another big round of applause for Ali.
This is the homecoming, adversity and commemoration, and of course, a book lunch.
His Royal Majesty Otumfo and Nanamo Memamo Asia. Eye me ani jisi meka enenye etumadi noho. Mere Intia IV UNESCO Obremo. C'est Africanino eye nidibe niina se ebeisha nanamo aemfo ne ade asheman awasheshe Africa abatise. Esteemed authors, Professor Malcolm MacLeod and Ivor Agiman Adua, dear members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished guests, the media, ladies and gentlemen, I congratulate His Royal Majesty Antufo Osei Tututu for supporting the bold initiative to have the exhibition Homecoming Adversity and Commemoration and launch of 2 books, Images of Ghana by Prof. Malcolm MacLeod and An History of Mania Palace Museum by Ivo Ageman Dua. His Royal Majesty Atumfo, standing here in this place rich with history, marked with time of the great civilizations of Africa, standing here in your presence as a testimony of the royal kingdoms that ruled and reigned in this great continent of Africa, only compared to us as representing the only institution in the United Nations organization that deals with culture and history and dealing with the history of Africa. We acknowledge how important this 25th Super Jubilee that we have celebrating today means in the hearts and minds of young people, especially for the present generation in regard to the future. You are a testimony of what Africa used to be before slave trade and slavery. It was great kingdoms that surpasses many empires that were known in that time. And so for us, especially for the younger generation who are looking into the future, we are inspired, but not only knowing what was Africa before then, but also you are a testimony of that great past and also an inspiration of the great future that what we all aspire to. So these books that tackle the issue of the complex nature of restitution in international global system and intellectual encounters between Asantehene, Osei Tutu, and British trader negotiator between and the implication of culture thereafter, as well as museum in Asante in the last 200 years respectively. I commend the 2 authors, as the chairperson of the moderator also highlighted, for throwing more light on Africa culture, history, and heritage. This is in line with the UNESCO General History of Africa project, which encouraging the narration of African history from an Afrocentric context that shows the contribution of Africa to global development and civilization. The refusal to recognize Africa as the possibility of creating original cultures holds itself as a challenge that only renunciation of prejudice and the renewal of method could have made possible to overcome. In the recent past, world history presented Africa only from the encounter of the continent with Europe, making this history appear as an appendix to European history. His Royal Majesty Antufo Osei Tutu, ladies and gentlemen, if after having conquered the land, the power and the labor force, the colonial system has resolutely worked to reconvert consciences and mentalities and to win them over its course through school, education, language, the mode of life, administration, and the army, as quoted by George Harley, called the moral conquest. It is because he knew that the strongest is never strong enough until he has reigned over minds, cultures, and consciences. Colonization was above all a subtle but significant and systematic enterprise of cultural alienation. In the implementation of this vast design, the role played in history, science, education, and culture was decisive. His Royal Majesty Antufo Osei Tutu, this is why, as long as African history and education system have not been stripped down, rid of all the falsifications, distortions, and tumultuous interpretation that they contain, it will never be able to reinvest in a new strategic vision and a chosen approach that will require for its development and to achieve its optimal effectiveness. Because we can only truly love what we know well. the commitment and motivation of African civilization in favor of their continent, and their conscious solidarity with the other people who will compose them undoubtedly depend on the positive perception that they have of their past, the value and relevance of their culture, of which history and language constitute the basis and substance. It follows from the above that for Africa to repossess themselves, as the former Director General of UNESCO said, Mr. Federico Mayor, occupy its place, it claims, in the current millennium, African civilization must, without further ado, reconstitute their civilizational heritage. That's exactly your awareness you're doing. If they want to find the best answer to the challenges of the present and those of the future, on one hand, and on the other hand, the strength, vitality and confidence necessary to participate in debates where the destiny of the world are sealed, as once said by Chekontajo Professor. His Royal Majesty Otumfo Osei-Tutu. Ladies and gentlemen, UNESCO clearly states that the return and restitution of cultural properties is central to the 1970 Convention, and its duty is not only to remember, but to fundamentally safeguard the identity of peoples and to promote peaceful society whereby the spirit of solidarity will be strengthened. Thus, the 1970 Convention aligns with the Sustainable Development Goal defined by the United Nations 2030 Development Agenda. There are more to be identified and returned, as my predecessor has spoken, and return to Ghana and continue to push for their return. We may also look at and resolve internal challenges around cultural property taken during local wars or conflicts. I commend Ghana for its effort in championing the return, reparations and restitution agenda for Africa in this diaspora. These cultural properties are more than just objects. They go to the heart of the identity of the community they were taken from. I hope the return of the current cultural property will encourage the Ghana team to pursue their objective with renewed vigor, urgency to come up with a roadmap. Artists, the civil societies, traditional authorities, academia, students, media, and the general public, but above all, under His Royalness guarding eyes. Policy documents such as the Culture Policy and the Multi-Stakeholders Heritage Strategic Framework of the Ghana Heritage Committee must also provide the necessary backing for the return, reparation, and restitution agenda. I hereby therefore once again congratulate His Royal Majesty Otumfo Osei-Tutu and his team again for organizing this historical set of events. And Your Majesty, you can count on UNESCO, and I will make personal commitment that my stay in this blessed country will be to ensure that cultural development and social cohesion under your guiding eyes will meet successful endeavor in the years to come. May God say.
We have two important events today, the book launch and the exhibition. And you have the privilege of getting the book and at the same time entering the first time for so many years the Mansion Palace Museum. We're still celebrating the 25th anniversary of His Majesty Otumfo Osei-Tutu II, and we are live on Apumso TV and Apumso Radio, of course, on all the social media platforms of Apumso. And that's the radio with the seal of the king. And now I'd like to invite the regional manager of IAG Cargo, Mr. Charles Ajay, to give us a shot with us.
His Royal Majesty Otumfo Osei-Tutu II, Nananum, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. His Royal Majesty gives me great pleasure to bring you congratulations from IAG Cargo. And also bring greetings to everyone from IAG at the grand opening of this magnificent exhibition. This occasion is a celebration of art and culture. We are delighted to have partnered with the Manshia Palace Museum team in facilitating the movement of these precious goods. IAG Cargo is the cargo division of International Airlines Group. We take immense pride in our role ensuring that global trade keeps moving around the world and understand the importance of seamless logistics and efficient transportation in connecting businesses and global communities. His Royal Majesty, here in Ghana, our commitment to support the import and export community has been unwavering. And as a result, local farmers, businesses, and industries are directly connected with London through our regular services to London Heathrow and London Gatwick, providing access to both Europe and America. Today, we are reminded of the profound impact that art can have on society. I am particularly proud of IAG Cargo's partnership with the arts community, which has been instrumental in transporting the world's most precious cargo to every corner of the world for so many years, from dinosaurs to precious paintings. His Royal Majesty, what a joy it was to lend our support to the transportation of these precious items to our very home land, Ghana.
Of sales, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa of British countries. This is historic. The recommissioning of the Manshia Palace Museum by His Majesty Otunfo Osei-Tutu II as part of activities market to the big anniversary of His Majesty. We shall all be waiting for the gracious speech of His Majesty after the call.
This building, from where I share these thoughts with you this afternoon, will be 100 years next year. Though originally built as a residential palace for my grand-uncle, Emperor I in 1925, was turned into a museum by my brother, St0len II, memory of the adversities and sacrifices that Prempeh I endured with those around him, divisional and sub-divisional chiefs, courtiers, some of whom lost their lives in Kumasi and across the Indian Ocean in the Seychelles Islands. Zero.
And afterwards, His Majesty will host his dignitaries at the forecourt of the Jubilee Hall. We have to wait until we will call upon to be seated for the lunch at the Jubilee Hall.
Asanteman TV, yes, so much on back.